Hi, and welcome to another Facebook Live here from the SETI Institute. I'm Seth Shostak, Senior Astronomer here at the Institute, and this is Charlie Lindsay, who's going to be talking today about art and science because he is the guy in charge of the SETI Institute's Artist in Residence program. Now, years ago, Charlie, C.P. Snow wrote about the two worlds. There's the art world, the literary world, and then there's the science world, and never the twain shall meet. Well, we're meeting. Tell me, why does the SETI Institute have an artist in residence like you?
You know, I came here thinking you were going to tell me that exactly. And Seth, do you know that it's taken us 9 years to sit down and do this?
Well, that's because you weren't in residence enough. Yes, okay.
But so 9 years ago, I met Jill Tarter in New York at an event, and through a number of serendipitous elements and occasions, we became fast friends, and she invited me to the observatory, to the ATA. And so I showed up with some fine wine, and we were walking around under the dishes up there, and talking about life in the universe and a lot of the great existential questions. And Jill described what the science that occurs at the Institute at that time, which it is now as well, as about 100 PIs, principal investigators, PhDs, studying the whole range of astrosciences. And long and short asked her if there was an artist in residence program, and she said that people had discussed it, it hadn't really happened, invited me to come back here, meet then CEO Tom Pearson, and from there it started to roll, and basically I was asked to be the beta test, so sort of invent what this program might become. What would artists do at the SETI Institute? I remember meeting you that first trip, and you were very welcoming. You said, I have no idea what an artist is going to do here, but welcome, basically. You effectively said that.
That was lack of imagination on my part. I have to say that I've had some past experience in the art world myself, believe it or not, but when I was working at a university in an astronomy department, we had regular contact with artists, but it was kind of a one-way street in the sense that the artists wanted to do something and they needed some technical information from us or scientific information from us in order to do their art. Now, how do you describe to people what artist in residence program at the SETI Institute? What is it you're trying to, create? I don't know, imagery for the Martians? What's the?
So great. Actually, this is a great question. So the program is a contemporary art program, and one of the things that I had to do early on, not so much now, but was help the scientists understand that it's not a program for illustration. That this is not. Well, I'm trying to be careful not to put my foot in my mouth because I'm good at that. But we're not illustrators,
right?
Some people would say it's not. Well, anyway, no. The foot's
going
to stay on my mouth.
All the time we have meetings here,
right.
and some illustration is required for the website or for posters, and they say, "Oh, we'll get one of our artists in residence to do that."
Right.
They think of them as graphic designers,
right? And so it's really not that. It's operating in an oblique territory. It requires a certain amount of trust that something might be discovered over there. And I think it is on surface. It's perhaps easier to understand how the artists can be influenced and inspired by the scientists. But having now had 16 artists go through our program, and we just named 3 a week ago, 3 new artists, excellent artists. The feedback from the scientists is that they do find the artists stimulating in a way that they might not have anticipated. So I think even the artists just asking unexpected questions and developing lines of conversation that the scientists might not anticipate or be involved in, that in and of itself is, I think, valuable.
Yeah.
And so that happens before the manifestation of the art. And by the way, I think that the artists that we're encouraging, some of them realize physical things, but a lot of them are interested in the ephemeral arts. So that could be theater, that could be sound, that could be, these other ways of experiencing
performance art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, give me a couple of real examples of art that have rolled out of this program, and where they are, by the way.
So one of the really exciting ones that's going on, it's a little bit of a forward feed for the audience, is Zainab Al-Hashimi is an Emirati artist. young woman from Dubai, and she joined our program about a year ago, and she's working with Mark Showalter, one of the great astronomers of our time. And they had a shared interest in geometry. Mark, one of the world's experts on planetary rings, Zainab's working with geometry with a historic Islamic context. And so they're collaborating on a sculpture, one of the main outdoor sculptures, a kinetic sculpture for Expo 2020 Dubai. So they're working on that right now, so that's going to come out next year. That's going to be very interesting for all of us.
Yeah, I think Islam doesn't sanction representational art, at least in certain venues. So having something like this is you know, I don't know, a different way to go. So this is going to end up being exhibited in Dubai.
Yep.
Right? This will have a physical manifestation.
Yep.
And anybody going to Dubai can see this.
Right.
What about some of the, if you will, more ephemeral kinds of art, the performance art? Can you give me an example of that?
Well, we have a couple projects in process. One of the things I would say, which is ephemeral in a sense, is some of our earliest artists, Danny, Carl, and Marco, that came from UC Santa Barbara. They're roboticists, and they did work with John Jenkins about using Kepler data. So you experience that there's a physical there, a robotic there to their work, but it's sonifying Kepler data, so it's another way to experience data.
Music of the spheres.
In a way, sure.
And where is this being displayed?
Well, it was shown in the first group show that we did at the new museum in Los Gatos. It's since gone to Europe and done some touring. In fact, I was at Stanford's Karma, the electronic music lab, today, just speaking about it, and Carl's active there now. CCRMA, by the way, is one of our partners in the Artist in Residence program. Long Now Foundation in San Francisco is a partner. Nevada Museum of Art in Reno and the Center for Art and Environment holds the archive for our program. So we also have these partner institutions that are both allowing our artists even broader access and perhaps influence. And so it's a way of also spreading, it's spreading what we do and enriching what we do. It goes both ways.
What about yourself? What sort of art has come out of your participation? Because you're the longest running artist in resident. I mean, you're the guy in charge, and that's been true since the beginning. What have you seen?
Do you know that I cooked turkey for Jill Tarter on Thanksgiving? And
was that hard?
So I worked right out of the gate.
I've given a few people the burp.
I did some projects at NASA Ames when I first came in because I got access through the SETI position and through our relationship with NASA Ames. And then I ended up partnering with Dr. Lawrence Doyle, who wrote the algorithms that proved humpback whale communications exhibit syntax, very strongly inferring whales have language. And Lawrence is actually speaking tonight at the Cal Academy about this work. This is the commander of the SETI
He's undoubtedly
Institute.
Out of frame, but
yes,
the torso.
Hey, so I know there's such a thing as photo bombing. Is there such a thing as Facebook Live bombing?
Apparently there is.
Well,
consider
guilty as
performance
charged.
art.
Well,
Fellow viewers, this is Bill Diamond, who really is the leader of the space show.
He's the CEO of the SETI Institute.
that is nominally true. And often I'm here talking to our friends all over the world anyway, but Seth he's much better at it than I am. So I'm glad to have him talking to you, but welcome and glad you're here today and giving us an update on the AIR program. I did want to apply.
We don't actually take applications.
Well,
but I know somebody that could recommend you. We have an advisory committee that recommends the artist because we're not set up to vet applications.
How many artists are there in total right now?
Well, there are 5 that are active. Number 16, 17, 18 in the Histories program were just named last week, so they've just become active. And so we really have 5 that are active.
You're gonna profile those 5. I mean, you've got some amazing new
Yeah,
artists.
we have great artists.
But I thought I would submit, like a piece of work. Like artists normally would, provide a piece of their work as an example. Because I'm a sculptor. You probably didn't know that. you're looking at me with a
I'm
great
listening.
deal of
I'm
skepticism.
all ears.
But I mean, check this out.
Well, and it's made of mashed potatoes. Too.
It is made of mashed potatoes. These are leftover from Thanksgiving.
Wow, that
That's
is
why they're all
great.
That's pretty good, though, don't you think?
But I think if it was upside down, it'd be better.
Well, it can be
There, it
arranged.
just became art right in
Yeah,
front
exactly.
of our
That's
very
what, now it would
eyes.
belong at the Tate, no doubt.
Yeah,
They do
I mean,
stuff
actually,
upside
if the
down.
people were this big, it would be there.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we bring? No. Is that?
This is Zork.
No, but this is
That's Zork.
This is a show stealing.
Yeah, well, it is. I have to say, the history of Zork.
Yeah, you should
Not
go
that
research.
anybody had asked, but Zork was mailed, well, to me actually, about 15 years ago, I guess, by the manufacturer of
Oh,
Zork.
is that right?
Yes,
Oh, that's
and I
funny.
think that they thought that we would put it on our website and sell a few for them, which I really had no objection to doing. But I don't know that they're even still in business. But he is really this is the best alien torso I've seen. I mean, I'm no expert in sculpture as Bill is here, but
Right.
we take this to conferences and set him on the table, and he's better than having chocolates in a bowl in terms of getting people to come up to the table.
Now, is
You
this the
may
one
have
that's
seen
been
him.
watching
If you go to Walmart late at night, you might see some of his friends shopping.
Is he on discount?
There.
There he goes.
All right.
recordings I'd made in one of the most biodiverse rainforests on Earth in Costa Rica. I worked in the fluid mechanics lab where I got permission to put 3 artworks in the tanks where they visualized turbulence around the early space shuttle models, which that's all done in software now, but they still have the tanks operational. And I did an audio recording around the D-Wave 2, the quantum computer that NASA Ames operates with Google, and I turned that into a sound work which I performed live and then also exists just as an installation, which was called The Sound of a Quantum Computer Thinking, because basically I was recording the sound of very expensive air conditioning. And at the center of that fuzz, multi-layered fuzz and sonic texture, was a beat. And I actually clocked it, with an app, and it was 99 beats per minute. And the engineers there said, I asked about that, and they said, that's the sound of the monkey running around inside.
There you go.
And so it was the helium pump that's used to keep the processor close to
It's
absolute
very
zero.
close to the human heartbeat rate.
Yeah,
Actually.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting.
Yes, that is.
Or
Pretty
somewhat
interesting.
agitated human, but
So we have,
don't forget
Yes.
Mass Mocha, where you exhibited not on,
I did in a
not
number
only
of
on your
artists,
own, with
a number
of our
in
other
the
artists.
Wonder, the Explode Everyday inquiry into the phenomena of
Now,
wonder.
this sounds all very academic, but Charlie here, he sort of blew through a description of something that he did that I thought was incredibly interesting. You had a video showing this. You went down to the rainforest,
Yeah.
and you installed this equipment up in a tree. Was that it? It was a microphone with a web connection and amplifier and so
Right.
forth, so you could hear the forest.
I was actually developing that with Bell Labs through the revitalization of their experiments in art and technology program. And we hit a kind of a wall in that project, so I'm miking other things at the moment.
Okay, but tell us a little bit about what you heard. I mean, if everybody could listen into the rainforest without leaving the comfort
Well,
of their
I think
desk.
the idea of listening is pertinent at the SETI Institute because, but I
It's
mean,
kind
what,
of
you know,
weird.
besides this, one of the things that's happening here that is important to that the general public understand, but also the artists, is that the whole breadth of astrosciences is represented, not just listening for radio signals or looking for optical, bursts or something like that. I do think that listening to the rainforest on many levels, it's exciting. It's exciting aesthetically. I mean, I'm really interested in insect polyrhythms. You can be in these rich places, and it's extremely stimulating. Let's just say that.
Is that mostly what you heard? Insects?
No, I mean you hear monkeys
Monkeys, I
and
guess,
birds,
right?
Monkeys,
and
birds,
humans screaming when
Night to
snakes
day
are
changes and so forth.
all that kind of stuff. So it's a very rich environment. And then personally, when I collect those, I like to process them because I like to turn these sounds into. I'm interested in this moment of pattern recognition where we look at something and go, that moment, or you think but it's not. That moment where we question ourselves, our perception. I'm very interested in both experiencing but also trying to instigate that in what's really an emotional response.
Is there a place where people can listen to that? I mean, is there a connection?
I mean, some of it's on my. I mean, it's not streaming live. There are certainly recordings on SoundCloud and through my website. There are. One of our new artists, as of a year ago, Felipe Perez Santiago, is a great composer and instrumentalist from Mexico City. So he's working with Jill Tarter on a project called Earthling. And central to that idea is developing a software platform to record vocal samples, particularly singing from people all over the world, and then to put that in the cloud or off Earth, truly, and then that it could be sampled in music. So that's another way of thinking about sound, thinking about our signal.
And by the way, the video, as you know, Seth, that they put together to promote that Earthling project, a lot of that was shot up at the ATA with Jill and with Felipe. It's a stunning little video piece. I think that's
it's a great clip.
So,
and
hey, listen, I'm going to let you guys
Thank you for
dive in, but I thought I'd drop in and offer my sculpting skills, which Seth blew because he knows the real origin of Zork. But
I think this is so compelling. It's a little bit like that megafauna and baby thing. How do artists compete with this?
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing that would be fun to do would be to, have a contest, let everybody, especially maybe young children, imagine what aliens look like, intelligent, technological aliens, and send us their ideas.
Yeah, one
That's
thing
a great idea.
probably wouldn't have is that, can you see that? Really a thin neck.
Got a very thin neck.
And look at this head.
Top heavy.
It's a big head. Right, exactly. That's like putting a bowling ball on a toothpick. It's probably not going to work.
But he's got those high cheekbones that models are always, striving for.
Well,
So that's
yes. Well, he is a model.
Well, exactly. All right, guys. See you later.
Thanks,
Charlie,
Bill.
thanks a
Thanks.
lot. Thanks, Seth.
Okay, so you mentioned one of the new artisan residents, and you have more than one. Tell us something about what they do and who they are.
So we just named 3. We named, and the process, by the way, because people do ask, is that we have an advisory committee and they recommend artists. So they're out in the world seeing what's going on in contemporary art and recommend artists who they think their interests and personalities might mesh with our program. So these people are put forward, and then there's a kind of vetting process. So we just named Jordan Holmes. He performs as Dexter Spitz, and he's a scientist and spoken word artist, rapper. It was through Natalie Cabrol that he came to our attention. And then Xin Lu is a artist I'm a big fan of, Chinese, has been working at MIT Media Lab, and she's very interested in space and has been on zero-G flights, and so Xin's just beginning to explore possibilities. I just introduced her to Pascal Lee to see she's interested also in field work and possibly going to the Arctic with Pascal. And then Alfred Darlington, who performs as Daedalus, who's a well-known and loved electronic musician, very accomplished. And Alfred, I think, is going to work with Stanford's Karma Electronic Music Lab and a scientist. We're not sure what scientist he's going to work with. But the announcements were just made, so these people are just beginning to formulate what they do. It's important to say also that we partner with the Montalvo residency, LucasArts at Montalvo. And Montalvo offers these great facilities. They have their own residence program, artist residence program, and so we overlap. That's one of our really valued partners in this endeavor. So the 3 artists I spoke about over the next 2 years periodically will come, stay at Montalvo. We'll do things up there, dinners and meet people, and then the artists will come here and meet scientists. And the first year is really an opportunity for the artists to meet several scientists and have conversations and start to think about where the there might be. I mean, that's up to them. That's not up to me. These are people that are clearly accomplished and talented, and so there's an assumption which has proven true that when they come into this environment, they will always figure out something to do.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, artist in residence is slightly misleading because generally speaking, these artists are not actually in residence here. They're in residence somewhere, one presumes, but they do spend some time at Montalvo, which you just described, and that's, it's like a 20 or 30-minute drive from the Institute.
Yep.
So, the scientists here go up there occasionally and have dinner with the artists, and the artists will pummel them with questions like, well, when you think about life, I don't know, on Pluto, there might be life under the ice of Pluto. I mean, it's conceivable, right? What do you think of? Or, if we were to send messages to the stars for the benefit of intelligent aliens. We've sent very simple pictures, we've sent some very simple sounds. Artists could do better at that than the scientists have done. That might give them some idea. They get some idea by talking to the scientists, right, for their
Absolutely.
projects.
And vice versa. I mean, it has gone both ways. And I think when this umbrella that's called contemporary art is an enormous umbrella. So it really, I mean, there's what we call the plastic arts, where you actually make something, and but then there's it gets into overlaps with study of consciousness and. I mean, we could have messaging, we could have philosophy. So there's many ways for these artists to come and choose to work. Are you? Did something just happen?
No, not to me, but maybe to him or her. Well, I'm not quite sure.
Yes. But I mean, I think this is one of the challenges of SETI is this association, which is fine and it's a good one and entertaining. But I think we might stretch our imaginations, not just to imagine other intelligence.
Well, this is kind of your standard alien, right?
And you've spoken about this before. In
Yeah.
fact, we once spoke at Cal Academy on one of those nights where they ply the viewers with alcohol.
Well, that was the only way they would continue to listen to our presentations.
Yeah. Where are you on that conversation these days? About, what's ET going to look like?
Oh, not like this guy. I mean, he's fine, and I wouldn't hesitate to invite him to a party, but personally, I think that most of the intelligence in the universe is synthetic. It's not, soft and squishy like this guy. But, listen, if you have comments, questions, if you want to know why it is that art and science should be brought together or what's come out of that, just send us a text now. Rebecca McDonald, our Director of Communications, is standing by with 6 number 2 pencils all sharpened, ready to write them down, and we will present them to Charlie, who will formulate some sort of satisfactory answer.
Maybe satisfactory.
Maybe.
But I think, this territory, it sets up, one, it's highly experimental, like most of what goes on around here. It's research. And I think that the idea, it offers an opportunity for artists to expand what they imagine, intelligence elsewhere would be. Not that that's the only thing we're doing at the Institute. We're going all the way from ideas about the beginning of life to what consciousness and intelligence might look like elsewhere. So as much as we all love this, it is the knee-jerk reaction. And we know this is a known quantity at this point. We're hoping that the artists will deliver the things that we haven't yet seen, heard, felt.
Okay,
So I mean, we haven't had our first artist that's specializing in haptic sensors. That's got to be coming.
Yeah, I feel your idea there. I think it's great. But yes, this is, if you will, the iconic alien.
Right.
Obviously, an artist given free rein and not, given a task by a Hollywood producer, draw an alien. He has to draw the iconic alien because the audience has to recognize what that is that they're seeing on the screen. So they can't go completely wild. But if they could go completely wild, if they could just say, I'm just starting from zero on this, that might, in fact, have some effect on the scientists, might it not? I mean,
sure.
Can you give some examples and where art has influenced science?
Well, a science fiction writer who I admire is Ted Chiang, and one of his short stories ended up being the movie Arrival. Ted's visited here. I think maybe you met him when he came through or not.
I think I did.
But look, from his story, and I would put that under a blanket of art, and then you look at how Arrival was dealt with, very much influenced by cephalopods, and yet still being a popular movie. I mean, the thing is, when you start thinking about synthetic intelligence, and I completely agree with you, it's possible there's no there to it. I mean, is there anything to see or feel? What would that be?
Well, I mean, presumably the synthetic intelligence would have a hardware implementation, if you will, right? You can talk about AI, but, if you don't build some hardware for it, it's hard for me to understand exactly what you're doing. Mind you, that could just be my own myopia on these things. But it's true, if the aliens, for example, in the movies were nothing more than machines sitting in a corner somewhere or floating in space, I think that would elicit less of a reaction from the audience, because the audience, by and large, consists of protoplasmic beings, right? They're almost all of them are people,
right?
More or less, and And as a consequence, you're interested in other beings that are biological, right? A famous Hollywood director, Frank Capra, once said, people are most interested in people. Okay, of course we are. And we're hardwired to be interested in people. And consequently, an alien that is not alive, maybe not even aware of its own existence, is a little less interesting.
Sure.
So,
We have one of our artists is Jen Bervin, such an interesting and wonderful artist, and she's done works with silk. She's on silk on a microscopic level with language as poetry, and she's working long term on her project now, and we're not sure quite what it will be, and that's great.
Well, that's it. Well, is there no clue on the basis of what she's done before?
No, I just think it'll be original and exciting, and we don't know. And that's part of what, you think about when people come in, it takes a lot of confidence to encourage that thing which you don't know. We can't know before the artists come in what they're going to do. We don't actually want that.
Yeah. You want the surprise element, the unconstrained.
Sure. And we might imagine there's a high attrition rate too. I mean, we're not going to think everybody's going to.
If people came to the SETI Institute's website, could they see something about the Artist in Residence program?
Yeah, there's information on the site. There's links to each of the artists' websites and little profiles. Our website, is still quite an institutional website, so it would be nice to have have a little more content with motion. But they could definitely learn about the artists and the fundamentals of the program. Definitely.
Yeah, I think people ought to do that. I can't really stress enough when I was living in Europe, when I dealt with the artists every couple of months that would come in, and at first I was thinking, I'm like, who are these artists? And you don't want to talk to these scientists, and these scientists don't want to talk to the artists, right? That was my preconception. And after I started working with the artists, I realized they could do things that none of the scientists could approach doing. Right? They had a different view of the world, and they had talents and creativity that was completely different from the scientists, or largely different.
Sure.
But the interaction was very interesting because they came up with things together that they never would have thought of separately. So I fully support this whole.
Well, I think in this area, I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is always brought up, but then experiments in art and technology, which is 50 years ago at Bell Labs, where Rauschenberg and Andy Warhol worked with scientists and very successfully. There's plenty of track record. I think what's interesting, we know that it works. It's just, it's encouraging to see how it works next.
I didn't know that Andy Warhol had worked at Bell Labs.
Yeah, he was involved with the metallized balloons early.
I kind of wonder, because Bell Labs, at least parts of Bell Labs, were in New Jersey there.
Right.
Not terribly far from Camden. And in Camden, New Jersey, here's a random fact for you. Camden, New Jersey is where the Campbell Soup Company was headquartered.
Oh.
So Andy Warhol, Soup, Bell Labs, maybe it all makes sense.
And do you actually know that one of the greatest fluorescent mineral deposits is very close as well at Sterling Hill?
That I did
Formerly defunct, a defunct former zinc mine, which I highly recommend going to.
See,
I've taken some artists there.
New Jersey has this bad press.
Yeah.
Totally undeserved. New Jersey's great.
That's right.
Okay. Well, do we have any questions? All right. So
no, the only, I think you touched on it, but people were wondering how the artists are selected.
How the artists are selected.
Yeah.
Well, but let's take it again. I mean, there are undoubtedly some artists that are tuning in here, and they might think, being an artist in residence at the SETI Institute, there are worse things I could be doing. Like, I don't know, nitrate mining in a jungle somewhere. So if there
That sounds like an art project.
I don't know where that came from.
I think we have a position for you.
Well, finally. Okay, but if somebody is interested in finding out more about the Artist in Residence program and possibly becoming an AIR, what should they do?
Well, first, please read on the website how we choose the artists and what we're thinking about. And you'll read there that we don't have staff to do open calls and vet applications. So then what happens is our advisors, who you can find out who they are on the website, who are people that are in contemporary art in different aspects, they're keeping their eye out. So the other factor is that we're looking to what we would call mid-career artists. So these are artists that are actively showing they have a track record. They also have lots of potential. That's the idea of mid-career. And so, and it's a particular personality as well, because it has to be somebody that can interact with scientists, have some level of scientific vocabulary and understanding. And then hopefully these advisors see work and are blown away somewhere, and then they let us know. So the best way to come to our attention is to do unusual work. And if you're doing work at that level, one would hope that it gets seen in due course. That's sort of another conversation, because the art world's a big place. And really the territory that we're interested in is right at the outer membrane of what art is and isn't. And so one of the things that we suggest is that artists working in unusual media are particularly interesting to us. So we know the traditional media, but we want to be surprised, and that's central. So, yeah.
Unusual media.
Yeah.
Sculpture and antimatter, for example. Okay.
That's right. That
Well-
would be great.
Charles Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for being
Thanks,
with us
Seth.
today, and I hope you will turn this in. This was, as performance art, not particularly exceptional, but maybe you can think of something to do with it. And I want to thank you
Well,
all.
we got
for-
our flow interrupted by the ET showing up, our commander, and he wasn't, by the way, wearing his jumpsuit when he did it. But you've always been very welcoming and supportive, and I thank you for that.
Well, I've come to like artists, actually.
So,
I was agnostic for decades.
May 2020 will be 10 years from when I met Jill at the inception of the program. And so somewhere around the Drake Awards night, which is May 14th, we'll have our next announcements, and 2020.
All right. Well, meanwhile, put all those worthless
Thank you.
hangings, with the kids with the big eyes and all that stuff that are on the walls of your home, put those on eBay and get some real art. Thanks
Exactly.
very much
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
for watching.
Seth.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.